Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 134 of Shunya 1. We have a banger ahead for you. What we've done this time is we asked Varun Duggirala of AID to do a crossover episode with us, or he asked us to do with him. It doesn't really matter. It could be either one. But what we do have is a crossover episode. We're going to be talking about advertising. We're going to be talking about technology. We're going to talk about the intersection of the two things. And we had a really, really interesting conversation on a whole wide range of topics. We hope you enjoyed this. If you did, do let us know. You can message any of us on social media. And if you did really enjoy this, we're going to try and bring this back as a regular thing every so often. So do let us know. We'd really appreciate that. And we'll be back right after this break with that episode. Hi, everybody. What a fantastic crossover. I'm really excited. Shiladitya, Varun, let's do this. What do you want to talk about
Yes.
first?
I
Yes,
was
it's been a
confused. I thought I'm in
while.
the wrong room.
Um,
For a second, I'm like, wait, did I log into the right episode recording? I'm like, what's going on?
hey,
That happens a lot nowadays because of all the live rooms that you have on various apps.
that is true. Do you do you bring Clubhouse in your Twitter, or do you bring Twitter in your Clubhouse? What's your what do you mistake for the other?
So I got a lot of grief for this.
Is that an innuendo?
It's not very hidden.
No, I got a lot of grief because I dissed Clubhouse very early on, and I said it's a one trick pony. I still kind of stick to that in many ways because it honestly is right. You can go into Clubhouse many times and not necessarily find something to listen to, and you go away. That's why I like Twitter Spaces more. I mean, you're scrolling through Twitter, you see some blurb come up on top, and you log in, and it's fun there. But yes, Twitter Spaces are interesting. I'm experimenting with it, except that it's not podcasts, but it's basically it's what GEC television is to more pointed programming. So GEC is Twitter Spaces.
But I think there's some possibility of Twitter Spaces becoming closer to podcasts, or Clubhouse becoming closer to podcasting in that sense, right? In the sense that if we look at podcasting as an evolution of radio, one of the more popular forms of radio is listener talk,
Hmm.
right, where listeners call in and you have conversations with them about different things. They can be like, I still enjoy listening to tech support shows because you learn about new tools
Yeah.
and stuff like that which you might or might not have been using. So I mean, like, I think there is some usefulness to the or not some, I think that there could be some massive usefulness to the thing, but I would agree with you that the place where I see the challenge with it is the fact that it has to be consumed live. And I think that that is just by its nature unnecessarily limiting. Why would you make it so that you have to consume it live?
Today it's limiting because today we have too much information overload.
Mhm.
Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
there's too many things you could distract yourself with or consume at any given time, which makes it restricting for folks like us. Maybe again, uh, I actually never enjoyed either of them, Twitter
Yeah.
Spaces or Clubhouse, more because I have a lot of other live things happening in my life, of course. But
Hmm.
that even when if I were to look for, let's say, time pass,
Mhm.
Hmm.
I am more a listening and consumption person at my own pace. And I don't know, I'm not a 1.5 or 2xer yet on podcasts. Not so
Ah.
much. I've done 1.5, and obviously live stuff you can't do.
So
So I guess
I do 1.2. I find 1.5 also too fast.
Oh, wow,
I'm a
I'm
1.2.
old school. I do 1x. I cannot do
Oh.
more than 1x on
No,
podcasts.
so I listen to almost everything 1.2, so I hear everything slightly accelerated. But
Ah,
it's 1.2 is for me like the spot at which it's still clear what people are talking about, but you're just kind of squeezing it in a little tighter.
yeah.
So
no,
So
but
for
1.2.
the
people
thing
like
about
that, they can never do live.
But
yeah,
so I think we all know Suchita Salvan, right? LBB.
yeah, yeah,
She had an interesting tweet on
I saw
Clubhouse.
that. Yeah.
That is this just basically panels on steroids?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
probably
You
is.
know, the problem with that is right, and that's exactly what people are getting wrong about it. Is that on one end, if you treat it just like a podcast where you just have, let's say, okay, I'm recording this almost live on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, and you can all listen in, but you can't contribute. I don't think
Hmm.
people really like that. Or on the other end, you got four people together; those speakers never change, and so that's why it's becoming panel discussions. No one's figuring a system of navigation, and I've been on a few international ones. And I found they do interesting things. Like you will have people who come in and hijack conversations. So
Hmm.
you will get someone who wants to ask a question, and that person at some point speaks for 10 minutes. You don't
Yes.
know how to bump them off. So at least in the US, people have figured almost rules of how, like, you will get like
Yeah,
2 minutes. You need to DM one of the people your question before we pull you in as a speaker. So once those systems kind of come in, you can actually build an entire interactive space, but with some rules. Right now, it's free for all. And right now, it's also really weird. Like, there's some stuff that does really well, which doesn't make sense. Like, I very early on went on to a whale moaning room on Clubhouse.
Oh, I heard about
Everybody
it.
just moans like a whale. That's literally the entire thing. There's nothing happening there. There are
But
about 100 people moaning like a whale. That is literally what happens there.
But Varun, what you're essentially describing is you're saying we need a producer to
Yeah.
make a clubhouse
Yeah.
conversation go well. So
Yeah.
how is that different from what we're right now? We're using a platform called StreamYard. We can put this link out there in public and ask people to join us,
It's not
and they
different.
will all come into a kind of like waiting room for us to pull who we want to. It's no different, right? It's the same kind of thing in that sense, right?
It's not
So
different at all. Yeah.
we need the producer. I mean, like, and that's the point which I think that gets lost in some of this. That
Yeah.
the idea that like just people talking will create content. It's like I think I've told both of you guys this before, right? Over and over and over and over again, the most common thing I hear from people when they pitch they want to do a podcast is, man, me and my friends were talking and we thought if we recorded it would be a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And that's just not how this stuff works, right? And but that's what Clubhouse is.
That is
So
what
Yeah.
Clubhouse.
yeah, so it's interesting, and it's, I think the features are cool, but it needs some
I think
it
also it has
needs
to become
it's
like scheduled programming, right? It's a little different. Like podcasts, you can still listen to it whenever you want to. These you have to be there live, which means are you taking almost like a late night television angle to it? Are you building formats people kind of come back to? Are they coming in with something fresh every week? Krisha Shok, he does a fabulous Twitter space, right? It's really fun to listen to because
About food.
I for food, right? It's intriguing because every time I know I'm going to learn something new, and it's great. It's a good time. It's a relaxed conversation. It's not 50 people jumping in. There are some really bizarre ones happening late at night. Like I've been on love chat shows where people are talking about love advice, which is kind of can go a little sideways if you're not careful. There is stuff happening.
I think
I
that's designed to go sideways, isn't it? Just by nature of subject
But really
and
on Twitter, do you want to go sideways on Twitter? Is actually my question there. So
but isn't it designed to be right? I mean, like, that's, I think that's intent.
I was on that. I was a speaker, and I was like, guys, I am married. This is my advice. Get married. And because they literally pulled me and Atul Khatri in, and Ranveer was hosting it, and Ranveer pulled both of us in. And I told Ranveer, you literally have got two guys who will talk about the married life in what you're calling a love show. While we'll talk about love, but our love and the audience was very young, right? At some point, we both like did old person things, and we said, no, Atul said he has to go finish a movie, and I said I have to go back and drink my turmeric tea. Both of which were true, but fair enough.
Wonderful.
Okay, guys, I have a
Wonderful.
few. So, I think the idea behind this was, and hopefully we can do some of these regularly, just the idea of like, having these kinds of more open ended conversations. So, I put together a couple of topics which I thought, like, kind of intersect advertising, technology, and thought that, this might be fun for us to kind of like, dive a little bit into, right?
Yeah.
So, so I'll bring up some of these and like, let's kind of just like, riff on them and see what comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one I thought we should talk a little bit about is this current panic going on about Instagram, Twitter, and everything else getting banned in India.
Mm.
Well, the context of that being mostly the new IT rules, notifications which were provided, and those guys deciding not to really kind of follow through with things, or the social media side. Thoughts, ideas?
I
What do you guys think?
I have a few feed. I've actually heard more about this than made my own opinion about it so far, because that's what most people do, right?
That's what
They,
we're
they
supposed to
give
do.
their
I think
opinion without
no one
you
expects you.
asking
No one
yours.
expects you to have your own opinion. You're supposed to steal from somebody else. Please.
So
Haven't you been on Twitter?
exactly right. But no, this is more from like not just Twitter, right? Or not just the woke audience. This is also from like, because this is like a government thing, right? Everything the government does has like hinterland impact. So
Yeah.
that's why folks from there also talk. So the funny thing about this I've heard is that people are looking at obviously the pro policy folks are saying this is necessary. We are a big country. We have too much shit happening. So much scams happen. There should anonymity should not be a haven for crooks and blah 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 blah. That whole angle, like everyone's driving down that angle. It's like, what do people have to hide? Why do these platforms have to? Why can't these platforms just comply with laws? Why can't they? What? Who do they have to protect? Why are they? That's the tone in which most people are pro government. And obviously then there's the other woke side of the audience, or the liberal audience, or so to speak, who are obviously pro freedom of speech, freedom of expression, privacy, etc., etc. The only thing that they both agree on, the only thing that they're both agreeing on is that they still need these tools. They
Yeah.
can't. No one is going to go on any alternative app.
You're not going on
No
coup.
one- yeah. Yeah. So the realization I had about this particular debate of government versus social media was that actually both sides still want it. They just they can't live without it. So I think Facebook, Google, Twitter, these guys are too big, or rather too ingrained in India as a country now. It wasn't so much 3 years ago or even, but now it's too ingrained. They're part of public policy. They're doing all sorts of, like, I mean, they're in papers as much as a Paytm is in the papers and all that. So I think they are. No one is trying to boot them out. This is just some. I don't know. I see it as some drama, thoda.
Yeah, because
To distract
I
people
agree with
from
you,
something.
right? I agree with you because I feel that this is not just happening in India, right? It's happening across the world. I mean, China historically did this for ages, still continues to do it. So in that sense, I feel that what everyone's trying to do is have some level of control. The platforms want control over how stuff happens because they have their own set of interests, and governments want to control stuff as well. So the only, I think the worry was that nobody thought TikTok will get banned, and that's where this is taken a little bit more seriously, and you're worried that is this TikTok 2.0? I don't know if that's even a term to use, but in that sense, right? Because that happened, and everyone thought it'd be temporary, but it's been gone for a while, and obviously it's helped Reels and everybody else, and so that's the big worry I feel. But Twitter isn't going away because Twitter is by far the biggest political and journalistic machine that is there globally, right? I read my news on Twitter because I follow a specific set of people and I get it from them. But and also, like, governments need it.
No.
If you look at how we get information, so it isn't going away, but it's that whole regulation piece. I feel that regulation is going to be a strong focus across all these platforms. Every country has obviously a lot more in the days to come because everybody wants to kind of get into it. It's similar to what's happening with OTTs right now with just censorship and everything else. So
declarations. I spent 3 hours with lawyers a couple of days ago to figure out exactly what parts of our company are under the OTT guidelines and what parts are not.
And it's very open-ended, right? There is no clarity on specifics, so it's not built for that.
And also you have to do something. You got to find a retired judge, and then you. So, like, I mean, like,
That's
there's
what I'm
some
saying. This is all
strangeness
drama. I see this as drama for giving. I mean, again, I'm being contrary. I'm making an opinion now. I feel this is drama to give certain people, keep people in the government busy.
So
That's what I feel.
I hear what you're saying, right? And I get, like, that there is this challenge between regulatory authorities and social media platforms, which are far beyond what they expected, right? But so I think part of the problem is at the government end for them abrogating their responsibilities to the social media platforms, which is what has fundamentally happened. So if you think about how technology has progressed, right? Books, printing press, radio, television, all of these things, right? There has always been a regulatory framework created around what content is allowed and not allowed for these various things. Now, over here, what's happening is that the government, instead of dealing with this on a principle to principle basis, is saying to the platform that you need to police it without giving them clear guidelines about what they need to police.
Yeah.
Right? Because the guidelines are not clear.
And that's also happening because if you look at most governments, they don't understand how this stuff works, right? No, they don't understand technology. They don't understand this part. Which is why, like, when the other and which if I get the OTT example, because someone said, okay, does this also go for YouTube? Because YouTube can't be held liable to self-censor if somebody's uploading something there. They obviously will do something as someone raises a flag. So
Post fact.
it's very open-ended, because I feel that at some point you need experts to really be in charge of this, and you in a sense have elected officials in charge of it and who aren't necessarily experts. So and that's really that's why it's always vague. It's never
But
specific, because for specific you need someone who knows how that works.
so while I agree with you, Varun, you need experts in charge. The experts need to come at the government end. Experts
Yeah,
cannot be the
exactly,
people at
100%.
Facebook, right? Like today, we're recording this on the 5th of June, and today Facebook announced that the Donald Trump lifetime ban is a 2-year ban because their jury of experts who they had put together said that your ban is too kind of, we don't understand it. It doesn't make sense either. You need to say what you're doing and why you're doing it, etc. And so they made it a 2-year ban now instead, right? And that's nonsense. I mean, like, isn't that a judicial responsibility to say? Because Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks that we have, they become the public square. That's what they
Yeah,
are now. Now, if
Yeah.
they're the
that's why we
public
live our
square,
lives. We
yeah.
live our
So,
lives there.
so
So who
if they're the
controls that?
public
Yeah.
sphere, it's a judicial responsibility to decide what is and isn't permitted. There can be guidelines, there can be things like that, right? I mean, like, if you're a publishing company today, to give back to the example of the printing press, you're not going to publish like, a racist tract. You're not going to publish something which is like, completely like ridiculously sexist. You're not going to do that because you know that this is going to cause certain kinds of issues with certain kind of governmental bodies. So you just won't do that. So that kind of normative compliance from the platforms makes sense, but the final authority, the final adjudication, if that doesn't happen governmentally, who in a democracy are the people who we have elected, correct? They are the ones who are supposed to represent the will of the people. Now I know that India has lots of wills of lots of different people, but
Yeah,
the theoretical fact is that they are supposed to be the will of the people,
You're
but
and
you
you're
we
you're
are.
can't
heading
regulate this.
towards you're heading towards saying there'll be a post saying governor of Twitter, India
Well, I mean, like
someday.
governor of social media, or maybe that needs to be a judicial function.
You know how
It actually
tricky
does
that
need to be.
situation is, right? That's a
But
very sticky slope to go
And
towards. But yeah,
again, let me take the tech company side here a little bit
yeah,
also, because you realize these are also public listed companies who have to make a profit, have to do a business, have to sell ads, have to do whatever like revenue that they're doing. Eh, You can't, and they were not born in the construct of the other companies you just said, that
yeah,
publishing companies or whatever. Those publishing company owner went into business knowing that this is the lay of the land, rules of the land in which I'm starting a publishing house, and I have to build my business
right,
as a moat, including knowing that these companies were born on the internet. They have
yeah,
built, they're finally figuring out revenue model, and
mhm.
now you can't suddenly put shackles on it, right? I mean, it's
no, I'm just going to say that the only way this can be solved is to go very granular, very deep down, saying, so take every single small aspect and solve for those, rather than try to do one sweeping large.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
the
say
because you need to
specific.
look at it from a very tiny perspective. You can't make it a broad
exactly
strokes.
Yeah,
pornography is banned is
Yeah,
okay to solve.
yeah.
Solve
uh, uh,
karo, tell
uh,
everyone ban,
uh,
ban, 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 racist
no,
tweets,
but exactly
whatever.
specifics. The specifics of this stuff matter intensely, right? I mean, like, because you can't put together hypotheses, or you can't put together hypothetical situations and try and use them as a metaphor for other situations, because the specifics change so dramatically the complexion of what you're discussing in this context. So, Sheila, I'm actually completely on the tech company side. I think that most of
Me
them
too.
would prefer the government handle this, because the government should say, okay, ban this specific post because of this specific reason. The
You
government
know,
should be doing that. And what's happening right now is, instead, and it needs to happen with a due process on the government side. What's happening right now instead is that you have these kinds of like blanket rulings coming out from courts, which are giving you like, because this new Salman Khan movie is releasing, 95 others, they're blocking basically 95 pages worth of websites. And that's not how this can happen, right? There has to be a sense of, so there needs a technical solution at the end of the government, which, or rather than a technical solution, basically there needs to be technical competence at the end of the government to deal with the fact that the world is evolving. That's the government's job. They have to govern the world as it exists, not the world that they want,
and
right?
also, I'm going to give a bizarre example of why you can't regulate it unless you go granular, right? Look at the Covin website and the bot hacking that has been happening on it for people
Oh
to get
yeah.
slots. right? Yeah, initially the website didn't have CAPTCHA, didn't have any of those things. You could just install a Chrome bot and you could go through it. So they added CAPTCHA. Then they upgraded the bots to have CAPTCHA access as well, right?
Yeah.
Today's paper basically now CAPTCHA's off, but anytime someone logs in, they can only do 15 tries and then they'll get logged off. So I'm sure there's a solve for that as well, which the guys.
Yes,
So you can't solve for the problem like on a evolving basis. You have to look at it like deep down granular. What is the issue there? But
everything Coven will become like a banking website after this.
yeah, it's a case study, right? If you look at it.
Now you realize why the banking websites are as painful as they are.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Why a HDFC bank makes you run through so many hoops and try to remember what was your
What was your favorite food?
What was your favorite food when you were in 9th standard and wore a yellow shirt? So
Can I tell you what's become the most convoluted thing in the world to do? Creating a new Google account.
Really?
really,
Yeah, it took me
No.
25 minutes today. I had to. So I was basically
I was
helping
able
my
to
help.
make one for my 14-day-old child.
How long did it take you to make?
Not much, man.
It took me a long time to do.
But was it a work account?
No, it was a normal Gmail account that I was making for my help's kids so that they can start doing some online education stuff, right?
Wow.
And to create each of those accounts, it just was like, okay, first do this,
Yeah,
then do
the
this,
phone
then find the
number and
password for
stuff
this,
comes in.
then find the phone number for this. It was like, I'm just like, dude,
Yeah.
just create the account and then ask me for the security stuff you need one at a time and I'll do that, right? But instead, you're hanging up the account creation. And so, and it's okay, maybe it's just, it's a very narrow this, but it took forever. And I was just surprised by how long it was taking.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it
I
felt
guess-
very official. It felt more official than it used to be, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it.
No, there
But
was just I think see, you created an account for somebody who's again a minor, right? Which added to the
So
complexity.
it just
It had
added
to
to my
connect to
account.
yours. Exactly. It
Yeah.
had to get connected to yours. Similarly, mine had to get connected to my helps account, right? And so that
not
also
as
was
easy as when I made v_doggydog at yahoo.com years ago. But
exactly.
which I
That
don't know if
was
it's
the
still
time.
alive. My first email ID was v_doggydog at yahoo.com.
Wow.
All right.
I don't remember
I
mine.
was a Snoop Dogg fan.
Man, that's a good person to be a fan of. Shall we move on to another topic before we take
Yeah.
a break? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We got what do you guys think about the since we got Varun with us, let's talk a little bit about advertising and stuff. So what do you guys think about the new policies that Apple is putting in place around blocking tracking and stuff like that? Varun, since you're the ad guy and the
I'm
Apple
like-
I'm sure
fanboy,
you've already spoken about this.
No, I haven't. But so I think it's a little more. So okay, let me look at this. Actually, just spoke to someone who's going to be in an episode on the gaming economy, right? And I've been doing that for a bit, and I realized that one of the big things is that the ability to monetize on the fly on gaming is so massive that that it's almost consistent. You're not doing it like how you do, let's say, your regular video ads, etc., where on YouTube and it just comes in blocks. Here, it's happening all the time. So there's so much money there, and at some point, see, Apple's always stuck to this privacy bandwagon. Lot people subscribe to it, some people don't subscribe to it. I love the fact that when I open up my Safari, it tells me who all are tracking me. Most times, a few usual suspects pop up, but I feel the issue isn't as much about them taking a cut. I feel it's finally come down to saying how much is that cut. The 30% at some point has become a thing, and if you look at even on the other end, what's happened with Spotify and Apple with their paid subscription part, Spotify is doing it for free. Apple saying 30%, right? So the Apple ad thing is always going to be there. I don't think they're moving away from that, because moving away from that will mean moving away from that one big selling point they push for, which is privacy. And so they'll stick to it. I don't think they're moving away from it. And we're anyway living in a world where advertising is dead, so it's fine.
But they're actively, I think the big impact here was, and again, I actually also work in the same space of not advertising and monetization through ads, but at least the ability to track user behavior, right? So this new change in which Apple is just making their ecosystem be a lot more aware of how your user behavior is getting tracked, how your identity is getting tracked by so many websites across, and so many advertisers in that sense, is hurting I mean, let me tell you, it's hurting. Like they did this for kids apps last year or a year ago. So kids apps as a genre went away, right? You cannot
Yeah.
advertise to kids on the Apple ecosystem at all
But
for anything which
but
classifies
do you
as
think it's a
kids.
tricky slope where on one end from the consumer end it does make sense?
And it does make sense. Consumers love it because they
Maybe
So
you can
feel on a
elaborate it.
I would disagree with consumers love it.
Hmm.
Uh, Mostly, generally, I mean, like what you see is that consumers think they love it.
yeah, they think they love it. They think that,
When
oh,
it
I am
comes,
safer.
yeah, when the pedal hits the metal and Twitter is going to start charging you $3 a month to use it, or when, like, services which are completely ad supported right now and their models are being destroyed, right, in this, and there's no
Yeah.
getting around it, their models are being destroyed in this, right?
Yeah.
When that starts really happening and people have to pay for everything, right, at that point in time, I mean, like, people are going to they're going to miss the old days, and then you're going to start seeing people engineering around this stuff, right? And I just want to kind of like just want to separate out two things over here, right? So one is the app store policies,
Yeah.
right, which is the epic lawsuit that's going on right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the second thing is the privacy tracking that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And these are two kind of related but separate issues, if you
Yeah.
will, right?
Yeah.
The When it comes to the epic stuff, right, over there, so I follow Ben Thompson when it comes to this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
right? He's in my mind probably the best thinker about this stuff, at least
Yeah.
available to you and me at a
Yeah.
price which is not tens of thousands of dollars for a report.
Yeah.
And
Casey
it,
Newton, though, again, fabulous second
yeah, he's
option.
also good. He's also really good. He's also really good. But what he mentioned over here was like Epic is actually a terrible test case for this,
Hmm.
because Epic is essentially selling virtual goods, right? What they
Yeah.
are selling is they're selling virtual goods in the Apple ecosystem, and for that, Apple to demand some sort of a premium is not, or some sort of a cut or a large cut is not completely unrealistic or not completely unfair. But you compare that to the experiences that Spotify, Amazon, Netflix, all of whom have competing services with Apple, have to experience, right?
Yeah.
Like, so Spotify's premium competes with Apple Music,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now Spotify Premium has to pay 30% margin for an iOS deployment, compared
Hmm.
to Apple Music, which does not have that 30% cost on it, right?
Yeah.
That's a bigger kind of problem, and that is something which is somewhat like, uh, I think that is something that there might that antitrust needs to.
Hmm.
This is what antitrust is for,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, if Microsoft was doing what these guys are doing right now, if they were doing this in the
Yeah.
90s, then I mean, like, that settlement, which was essentially nothing, would have been something real, right? But
Yeah.
what's happening over here, if a Spotify subscriber, or a Savan or a Ghana subscriber, or any of them, right, they either have to have this convoluted way of pushing you off of the app to go and make
Yeah.
you make an offline
Make you
purchase via
sign
the
up.
web
Yeah.
and then submit this, or they have to pay Apple 30%. And you can't change pricing, you can't do differential pricing on Apple, because that's again against their terms and
Yeah.
services. So that to me is a
Yeah, that's a very
that's
easy thing to solve. Apple
yeah,
should just
just
demarcate how much
well,
they pay for a service which is externally available
yeah,
versus something which exists because Apple exists,
correct,
Yeah.
exactly. And
right?
I think
It's
that
just,
that's an easy one, right? The I think Apple's in the wrong over there, but I think that's an easy fix, right? The blocking that they're doing on advertising is a much more complicated situation, even though I think they're destroying a number of businesses that were built on on the rules as they were. But hey, that's life. I mean, like, the platform has the rights to make certain changes if they think it's to the benefit of their user. I don't know if it's to the benefit of their user, but that's something that I feel Apple can choose to do. This feels a little, the App Store policy, the 30% that you're taking of Spotify to gain a premium subscription, meaning that Spotify
yeah,
has
that
to
is just
operate.
unfair
That
business.
feels wrong.
Hmm.
That is unfair business
Yeah.
practice in
Yeah.
the example that you
I
quoted.
agree. Yeah,
But
and
just
also the
just
fact that
to,
if you search for the music, if you search for music as well, it's not Spotify doesn't show up on search right up on top, right? Even
No.
Apple, it comes way down
oh
there.
oh
So,
well,
so
that's
yeah, these
just
are
Apple
slightly
being Google.
scuzzier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yes. But
That's a
to
yeah.
the point about tracking, I want to know from Varun, because again, advertising
So,
is dead, yes, but what is the future then?
So I honestly feel that we'll eventually end up with two kind of categories of consumer. One category who has paid to make sure that, see, also when you have an Apple device, you have paid a certain amount of money to be able to have an Apple device. Right? You will have a
Yeah.
category of people who have paid to not get track, not have ads, not have any of those things, and you'll have a category. It's almost like getting your regular cable television versus getting like a streaming service, or what DTH initially was, right? So it's going to be that. But from an advertising perspective, to be honest, there are still ways you can get to consumers. You just don't have to do it without having first party, like without having clear data guidelines. And that's a conversation that's been happening globally for a while now. Everybody's also kind of had preempted something like this coming up. So while you can't track as much as you could before, doing it more ethically makes more sense. I'm kind of getting to that. So that's actually the conversation I've heard the most in recent past. So when this happened as well, everybody obviously had panicked a bit. Everybody had their own points of worry, but it'll hit small businesses more than it'll hit larger media plays in that sense. But for small business, I think they'll figure a way around it. I feel that there are ways they can still get to it.
Which is why Facebook was the biggest, loudest voice, right? Because Facebook calls themselves the friendly platform for small businesses. Like you pay enough dollars and you can compete with a Coke ad, so to speak.
So, Varun, can you explain to people who are not as steeped in this, what is the difference between first-party tracking and third-party tracking?
I'm not the biggest expert on it as well, but basically what that means is the fact that you are not getting your data from someone else and trying to connect to a consumer. Easiest way to explain is that if someone has directly given you that data. So if you have, let's say, your own D2C website, and I think that's where the market's really going. You have your own D2C website, and you're almost building up consumers who keep coming back to your site, not necessarily doing it through a Facebook or through someone else who in part is giving you that data. So that's where third party comes in. You're taking it from them. Here you're directly taking it from the consumer. And there are a bunch of brands who I kind of subscribe to, buy from, who I know for a fact now have that data, and they can connect with me in that sense. So we're coming to that point now where everyone's trying to building their own things, and it's a good thing, because at some point, and this actually ties back to what we said earlier as well, with what's happening with the social media platforms, etc., for you to own your own space where your product lies and where someone can transact with it, makes it a lot safer for you, even though it might not give you the kind of scale. It's a whole Amazon versus Shopify model conversation.
I feel like a Donald Trump joke must be made in this context, doesn't it? He had to shut down his blog. He shut his blog down a couple of days ago because he wasn't getting the kind of reach he was getting on Twitter.
Exactly.
Wow. But okay, to answer the question you asked, Varun, I actually know about first party and third party tracking because I'm also in the business of first party tracking.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. More and more customer, what Apple is trying to do is saying, hey, if a user willingly has given you first party information saying, hey, this is me, I am Shiladitya, I am Varun, I am Amit, and I checkbox like Clubhouse or Spaces or whatever, then you can use that information to tell me, give me
if
feedback.
you ask anybody in advertising what our business has changed to, we'll tell you that we become a technology business, which we're a SaaS business now. I have not heard the word tech build as much as I've heard it in the last 1.5 years, and I work in production and on the production side of advertising. So everything is a tech piece. Everything happens on table, happens using the physicality of it has like, there's a big chunk that's just moved away. We're also a tech business now.
There are a couple of more things that I had that I thought that would be interesting for us to kind of dive into, right? So let's kind of maybe combine one of those topics. How do you think things have impacted the ad scene and the tech scene in the pandemic, right? I mean, like, what do you think? How do you think we come out of this? How do you think things change? What are your thoughts around, like, broad, big, or high level kind of? Do you see the nature of work changing?
No, 100%. It's all changed.
Yeah. Go for it, Varun. I have tons to say about this.
Yeah. I'm just telling you my experience, right? Right before the pandemic, my job focus was to look after content production as a capability in the agency system. So there's still a lot to do about physical shoots, a lot to do about, we were still talking scripts and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Right now, what I talk about is, okay, what is the framework to get X number of assets created in a year? What are the automation pieces we can add in for creating those? What can we look at past content pieces that are there? Build a bank of those. or a DAM, as I now learned is a term, which is data
Oh,
asset management, which is a term I didn't even know till 6 8 months
I
ago.
interesting. I don't
Uh,
think I've heard that before.
I have not.
Data
Basically
asset
putting all
management.
the content that a brand has made onto an entire tech platform, and you can
Yeah.
kind of search for different things. You're tagging them, right? So you don't have to reshoot things which you might have already shot before, right? So you're reducing shoot time required. A lot of it has moved to animation, post production. You are working with crews anywhere in the world because you're working remotely. So and remote shoots, right? Now there are tech pieces where I can be sitting here, I can have a camera set up with like 4 people instead of 50 people in the studio, and I can actually calibrate that camera, check the settings on that, and have multiple rooms set up for people to view it from different angles in the studio itself. So
Wow.
the tech has caught up very quickly. You can literally do everything from file transfers being faster to, and obviously the media side of it has obviously evolved very quickly in terms of just how you can kind of connect, because as D2C became the only way you could send stuff to consumers, that really blew up. Creativity at its essence, I think that the core old school thought process of creativity in advertising for many people kind of taken that hit, right? Because they were used to kind of sitting in one room doing that brainstorm. All those classical madman-esque things um, have kind of taken a bit of a, I'd say they haven't gone away. You still do those, but you do those for, okay, I want this in the IPL, I want this for awards, I want this as a big creative to go on television. But 80% of our job is what I spoke about before. And that's what we're building towards. And I use the word framework more than I've used anything else in recent times. So it's been interesting. So that's really where the ad business is. We are a tech enabled creative business. First tech.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah, and I mean more of just that. I mean, for tech companies who are already tech companies,
Yeah.
situations only become more dependent on tech, right? I mean, we've had so many shows already, Amit,
yeah.
like where people have come in and talked about the how work from home has changed, how their culture has changed, how their
Yeah.
the reliance on tech has changed. Like literally, like my laptop has like a bunch of extra security stuff which it never had before, because used to go to the office, and the office was well protected, firewalled and whatnot. uh, the number of people I work with professionally in my space, where as customers also, right, who we deliver SaaS services to, even those guys are suddenly realizing how much more they need to know all this stuff. So if you work with a bank today,
Mm.
every bank used to be about, oh, I will not buy cloud software, you have to install software on premise in my sort of gated environment and blah blah blah, and do all of this, and then I will work with you. Now, well, they have to buy cloud software, guess what? So because there is no one sitting in their office anymore, but they still have to buy it with they have to meet there's you have to meet them somewhere in the middle, because they
Right.
can't suddenly overnight go from a tech zero to a high level sort of tech companies. And that's where the amount of training, the amount of changes you have to do to how your platform works, how your product gets delivered, how people use it, uh, all those things which we were talking about earlier, the number of captchas you have to put in and the number of security things, like those are just becoming more and more, I would say. People are realizing some things are bottlenecks, but
Mhm.
at the other side, some things are also essentials. Like you have to have good security, you have to have, like, people are more worried about ransomware attacks,
Yeah.
because people's laptops are at home and they might plug in some random device. Like there's no monitoring, right?
Mm.
Right.
You can't see what your employees are doing, uh,
Mhm.
or whether or not they're behaving correctly in a work environment, because their work environment is literally just this screen. Like
Right.
right here could be something else, right? Which is threatening and dangerous or whatever.
And you have no idea. Yeah.
So beyond this, it's chaos. I can see businesses rethinking how they need to work, how they need to use tech. It's not been so easy for many companies. For people like us who could switch on a streaming, and like instead of a studio, have
Mm.
our own hardware and do this recording through interesting streaming tools. it's been fine. But other companies are actually still struggling. They're still figuring out how we can run a business which needs a certain amount of physical security, especially. That's the one thing, I guess, which has impacted a lot.
How do you guys see D2C companies? I mean, like, we spoke a little bit about this. Varun mentioned them a couple of times, I think. But I think, like, a little, it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about that, right? Because, I mean, like, how do you see, like, Epigamia has gone full D2C? There's the Thrive now, which is connected with all these restaurants. All of
Dot
this is like,
Pay.
sorry?
There's another company called Dot Pay. Sorry, I
Dot pay. Okay,
again.
yeah, yeah, no, but
Yeah.
all of these, right? I mean, like, which are kind of looking at this, right? So, this is a twofold question, right? I mean, like, one is, do you think that these kinds of companies are going to continue to grow and, in some ways, break the hegemony of Amazon, Flipkart, where people will start using direct destination websites? And the second kind of this is that whether it happens or not in that way, do you think the general kind of e-commerce growth that we have seen is it going to sustain, or are we going to see dips in them, or do you think that we're going to continue to see growth in them?
I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Wow. Okay. So,
Big question.
all right.
I
No,
gave you a
no,
big fat question to like just
no,
talk
no.
about
But
whatever you want to in this space.
I'll start with a personal example of what I think is or what I have experienced ever since the lockdown last year. I have personally used more D2C brands than I have ever used before.
Same.
It could be that I have just been very vain and seen too many Instagram ads and got totally hooked because of them.
Yeah.
And they have been doing a good job. So clearly, advertising does still work. It's not dead.
Yeah.
And but it's
Too many
also
plugs, too many
because
plugs in this episode. But
yes, but it's also because I feel as again, right, everything in our lives is direct to consumer now. If I can choose what to watch on Netflix, I can choose, if I'm well informed enough, what kind of brand I want to wear, what kind of yogurt I want to have, what kind of blah 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 blah. So I think and we that they have only become stronger. So I think D2C is absolutely going to become stronger. People are getting more opinionated. People are evolving their tastes a lot more. Now there's a country angle to this also in India, because I think India is at that stage, right? Finally, where we do have some brand localization of brands, or rather, brands used to be this sort of be put on a pedestal a long time ago. Like the global MNCs used to be put on a pedestal. Now we are sort of out of that. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's some brainwashing or whether it's the maturity, but now you can try out a nicely designed new D2C brand who you've never heard of with just 5 reviews, and just because it showed up on your social, I'll try it. Like I love trying out random new products. So we've become, that mindset has arrived in the Indian culture, I feel. So yes.
I was hosting a panel which had Kabir from Dunzo and Shashank, who's the founder of Whole Truth Foods, right? And one thing came up very
Favorite
interestingly.
sponsor, Best Bars. They make amazing bars. They're a sponsor.
Yeah. They have great great muesli. They've just
I
launched
love the muesli.
The muesli is really good.
fabulous muesli. It's like
No, but their peanut butter, the peanut butter half protein bar or whatever that the nutrition bar, that's incredible. I mean, like
I like the
I order.
cranberry one, but yeah.
So, okay, so Shank, I should
So
say
what they said was interesting. They said that niche is actually the best position to take in the D2C market, right? To be mass requires you to be many things to different consumers. But if you just focus on a niche, you can still hit scale in terms of just revenues and numbers and audience without having to go like, I think that's where I like the point about the MNCs that you just made. Right? It's just that, it's the fact that you can stick to niche, scale up from there. You can just add categories as you kind of go along. I mean, look at some of the recent examples. Right? Look at like a Mama Earth, which kind of scaled up how it has.
Yeah.
If you look at like how Whole Truth's kind of adding those pieces in there. Look at all the brands that you would kind of see you would buy. They're hitting reasonably sized, or actually phenomenal sized revenues, small product ranges, very razor focused consumer. Like I buy March tees, like which I think is a fabulous t-shirt company, and I buy them, and they just make t-shirts. I mean, now they're making pajamas and stuff, which I'm which I'm intrigued to try. But they haven't gone beyond that. But I'm sure that they're a company that does run with a decent amount of revenue and kind of growth. So niche is a fabulous thing for D2C. I feel that once you go to scale is when it gets tricky. If you stick to niche, you can still make a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's happened because there are enough audience for that niche also, who is now reachable. They, I don't
But
know how reachable that
Can I
audience
give you
was
my
before.
favorite D2C example? I am
yes.
from Andhra. I need to have pickle with my meals, right? One of the things which I have missed in the last year and a half was that I would normally try to figure a way to have something shipped from back home here. I have found 2 to 3 really good D2C pickle brands who I order from consistently, who give me the same taste and flavor I would normally get if I got it from back home. And while I go from one to the other, sometimes I want to just figure if which one might be better. But I'm now stuck to that. I don't necessarily like. I'm actually not digging into like getting it from back home anymore, because I'm like, I
Right.
found a couple of brands, and they're adding more and more pickle flavors. But it's interesting, right? You wouldn't think that would be a thing, but that is a thing, and there are
No, but
many
I
of them
can.
popping up.
I feel like the thing that I bought the most is cheese. Right,
Hmm.
like that feels like something I bought like at least it's between cheese and the whole truth foods, right? I mean, like those are
Hmm.
the two which I feel like I have spent the most, like, or at least the number of times I've ordered is the most on those, because again, these are some things which are harder to get in traditional stores, right? You're not going to get Emmental, you're not going to get Brie, you're not going to get like these kinds of more slightly fancier cheeses, and from the whole truth foods perspective, right, I feel like that stuff also. Yeah, I've had Nature Valley granola bars, but these are just better, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah. So I mean, like,
No, and the
I
brand messaging echoes with
yeah.
you. So see, that whole niche, right? They found the persona.
Mhm.
Today
Yeah.
the persona exists for a March tea and for a whole truth. So
Yeah,
that if the persona exists enough numbers, you can make a business out of it.
yeah,
That's
absolutely
what's
true.
also happened. People are on the internet, they see ads, they like products,
Mhm.
their friends talk about it, and they feel FOMO and they try it out.
Can I tell you the most interesting example though, which I found recently is that, so I buy a lot of personal care products, right? It's one of my things. Like beard oils, beard balm, like on some 50 of those lying around everywhere. The two which I found which are the best are actually sub brands which were launched by L'Oreal and by Gillette.
So
So
they
it's called,
can do it if they want.
yeah, so it's called the L'Oreal one's called L'Oreal Men Barber Shop or something like that, Barber's Club. So it's
Interesting.
got that old school barber vibe, but that's what's out there. You will still see L'Oreal. It's a smaller part. Gillette one also is called, like, I think it's called Mr. Gillette or something like that. So they're creating D2C brands from their master brands, because that they know that that's what people will buy. Because I might not necessarily buy a Gillette product, but this Gillette, Mr. Gillette's look fun. It actually it smells like, those old school barbershop products used to get, which had that like hardcore mintiness to everything.
Mhm.
And so it's
Mm.
interesting that you have like MNCs going, okay, let's just build a small niche product. Like let's
Yeah.
cater to that audience.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, yeah, it especially the hair, sorry, the grooming kind of healthcare kind of space, right? You remember Sheila, we had Revant
Yeah.
on, right? Revant
Irrelevant.
Patel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man
yeah, yeah,
matters. Yeah.
yeah. Well, he's got the new company that he started, right?
Man matters. Yeah.
Man Matters.
Hmm.
That's what it's called. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I mean, like, again, same kind of stuff, and he's raised a mad amount of money, right, for that
Hmm.
particular thing. But again, it's like manufacturing and all of that. But I mean, like, it's a space which clearly many people are seeing as like kind of a big one, and in the D2C
Easy
itself.
way to get in as well. Right? Manufacturing is easily available because you have many manufacturers available you can tap into. Marketing is entirely online, so you can
Yeah,
run this remotely. You don't even need to build a factory. You don't have to build a distribution center. Don't need
yeah.
anything. You
Yeah.
can just do it from home.
Oh,
You
oh.
do. And I mean, I know so many D2C owners in that sense, whether it's Swami or whether it's
Yeah,
like I spoke to the M Caffeine guys
yeah,
Mhm.
recently. All of these folks are essentially M Caffeine. The guys told me they're all sitting out of Goa.
yeah.
Manufacturing is in Maharashtra. But
Is
pandemic,
Swami
and
a D2C brand?
It
of
is
It's
course,
now.
more
Yeah.
offline, no, than online.
So they've had
well,
to. I think brands like that have also had to
they've
adapt,
adapted.
right? They've had to move to selling online, because how often have you gone to a supermarket to buy tonic water? Now you can just buy it online, and that's become. It's improved a lot in terms of just like how much people buy it. Like I buy it off D2C now.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I don't. For me, it just comes with the gin these days
Most
because
of
I
these
buy the
brands
gin. Yeah.
are both, by the way. Most of these brands are not all of them are only like very few of them are only direct to consumer on their own
Mhm.
sites. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
them also, like a Sugar sells on Nika also,
Right.
yeah,
or a Whole Truth sells on Amazon also, right?
yeah.
That's
So,
true. That is true. I guess. Yeah.
so
You're probably that's true. I
you,
guess.
you
And so
have
then I
to,
mean, like
you can't
going
give up
offline is.
distribution.
And,
Yeah.
and
Why
and none
should
of them
you? You
want to
should.
stay. None of them want to be just an Amazon brand because that can go sideways very quickly, right? Because you can
Yes.
just have
Yeah.
like
If
one of
Amazon
those
stops showing you in the search, you're screwed. You're done.
Amazon Essentials tonic water might just show up some at
Yeah.
some point.
Exactly.
Correct.
Basic or
Exactly.
whatever
That's
it's called.
it. I mean, like I was for the longest time. Amazon Essentials is evil, but I just keep buying Amazon Essentials all the time, man. It's just like I don't know why.
You know why?
I,
Because when you
huh?
search it, that's the first set of things you see.
No, man, it came today. So I just today bought
But
a
there,
mouse. Right, I
Hmm.
wanted a larger mouse, so I was searching for large mouse on Amazon. The Amazon Essentials thing came after, like the MX3 from
Yeah.
Logitech.
from Logitech and all of that. It came like quite a bit below, but I'm looking at it. I'm like, dude, that thing is $8,000. This thing is $1,900.
Hmm.
I think I'm willing to try it for $1,900 and see how it goes rather than spending $8,000. So I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and again, because I've had good experiences with Amazon Basics, just generally, right? I have a USB-C wire, works perfectly well. I have, like, there's just a whole bunch of stuff like that. But
Yeah.
rather than commercial for Amazon, let me ask you guys one last question before we wrap up, right? And this is this is basically I wanted to, like, we spoke about the social media bans that are occurring or are basically being
Hmm.
discussed right now, and I thought that it might be interesting to talk a little bit about the bans that happened last year, and
Hmm.
a year later, what do you guys think about the reasoning, how this stuff played out? What are your thoughts, right? I mean, like there were a bunch of things that got banned, but I think the two big ones are TikTok and PUBG, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like from a consumer awareness perspective, though I
Yeah.
think the list of bans was like 300 apps or something like
Yeah.
that, but TikTok and PUBG would be the two big ones, right?
Yeah.
And I have some thoughts on both of these things, right? So I'd love to hear what you guys think, though.
Um,
Okay.
so for me, TikTok was and PUBG. I wasn't as into. I still not into as into the gaming scene, but I feel in a way PUBG is kind of coming back. But for me, TikTok was such a big, like, you had an entire economy that was just growing with that, right? You finally had tier two, tier three city creators and getting up and making some money out of this. And while a lot of them have taken time to transition and have transitioned, you had so many people who had become almost like, they're bringing money into the house, and as you go further away from main cities, that actually mean I feel that it was so important to happen because it finally blew up the creator economy here. um, that for me was a big, I mean, I had expected to come back, but now I don't know if it coming back will make sense or not, or when it will, or if in that sense. Um, but I mean, this is all political, right? There isn't as
Yeah.
much about a tech conversation here as there is a political conversation. The US tried it, didn't happen, maybe also because Trump. But
Can I
I don't
just
know.
say technology is politics and politics is technology?
Yes, it
I
is.
mean,
It,
like
Oh,
I think
everything.
that the two things don't
Politics
you
is the
can't.
biggest tech stack we have.
Yeah, you can't really, like, divorce the two from each other, right?
nice.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of quotable quotes from this episode. But very nice.
This is me kind of channelizing my internal Scott Galloway in the nicest way possible.
But I have to, I by the way, I second that specifically for this. The last two bands we had, you can see what was common with those two companies,
Yeah, yeah,
and it has nothing to do with tech.
yeah,
Yeah,
It is only to do with our neighbors.
yeah,
So
it does. So, but
that's about it.
I think it says something like, so the TikTok ban. There are two different things. The PUBG ban, I think, is interesting because you basically pissed off a bunch of people who you shouldn't piss off, which are
yeah,
basically gamers with nothing to do, right?
yeah,
The fanatics for PUBG are basically spending 4 hours a day on that game, right?
yeah.
Uh, this was, like, in some ways, the Streisand effect writ large.
Mm,
Uh, the
Hmm.
how to sideload on an Android phone, right,
Hmm.
was never something anybody would know, but now every second kid knows how to sideload on an Android phone, right? Because you ban PUBG, you ban their game, you ban the thing that they wanted to do, and so they
Hmm.
have to sideload, they have to VPN into a server in Korea to play and do all these kinds of weird stuff, but they all did it, So I
Yeah.
think that it was a in some ways it was a futile ban about in what they were trying to do. But at the same time, also, I mean, like the PUBG's back. Not called PUBG anymore. It's called Battle Undergrounds, which is what it originally was. If, again, from Krafton, whose new Asia Pacific head is our friend from Shunya One, Anand
Anand?
Standen. Yes.
Yes.
But that's a so I mean, like but it was like it was a kind of this. The TikTok one is a little weirder in my mind, right? Because this is
Hmm.
something that's happened to me a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, right? TikTok for many people internationally has become their primary social media presence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so now what's happening is that I'm seeing a link to a TikTok profile on an article and clicking through it, right? And I'm basically getting the government of India as banned us.
Yeah.
Right, like so there was an article about a professor from New York, Indian origin professor, who said some really strange anti-racist things, but in a
Hmm.
way which were kind of really weird. So I wanted to look at her profile because again, I was reading the article at a place where I wanted more context for what she was saying, because the article can be misappropriating, and then the article had linked to her own profile. So I was like, let me go and see what she actually says herself,
Yeah.
right? But I couldn't do it, and I
Hmm.
feel like this is a little in a country like India, which is ostensibly a free country. We're not a dictatorship like India, sorry, like China, right? And so in a country like India, this feels wrong. This doesn't feel good to me, right? That we should not be able to access what's important information now, finally, right? Because this is not. I'm not like looking for like the latest dance video. I'm not looking for. And I get that information is information, and you shouldn't really. What's important to one person might not be important to another person. But I mean, like there is still a sense of what's like. This is real. This is important. This is stuff that we should be able to access if somebody has a really somebody prominent in a conversation about social impact issues that we want to find out about, if their primary presence is on TikTok and us not being able to get access to it, I find that a little problematic.
Yeah. I think it will eventually come back because it's such a global phenomenon, right? But TikTok by itself has also become, it's like how Snap became, like Snap and Stories has become something all platforms had.
Yeah.
Um, I weirdly saw reels on when I opened Facebook today. I don't open the Facebook app very
Oh yeah,
often.
of course it has.
Facebook
It
has
Yeah.
its
showed up
own
there.
it has its own thing. No, it's not
Yeah.
Reels. Is it
No, it's
Reels?
not, now it says reels. Um,
I
so
thought they had
Facebook
Oh.
their
has
own
reels,
little.
YouTube has shorts. I think Instagram Reels has been the biggest growth engine.
Mhm.
And anybody internet and but the TikTok by India did something to the creator economy, which I don't think will ever change. Is that it made everybody think about not being a one platform creator. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, something happens on that platform, something changes, you suddenly have nothing, and that happened to many of them. So now you
Actually,
talk to any creator, they're like, I want to be in 2, 3 places. I don't want to be in just one place.
that's a
Hmm.
massive good. I mean, like the Donald Trump thing notwithstanding, right? I mean, like I've always been a proponent of the open web as opposed to like the app as the only place to kind of access something, right?
Yeah.
For me, the idea that just a browser which basically renders code which is kind of created through standards, I think is important. I mean, like I just feel like open access to information is important, and
But
so yeah.
sorry,
You're a guy who likes RSS feeds, huh?
ha-
I'm the guy who likes. Well, I'm the guy who. I probably have the deepest love-hate relationship with RSS feeds of any person in this
I
world.
know because of
but can I tell you about something which is coming?
podcasting.
You know that Facebook's
Uh,
launching audio reels, right? Do you guys know that?
so Facebook. Listen, I'm not going to buy any Facebook audio and audio announcements until I see product.
No, but my question is, what is an audio reel? It's 15
I,
seconds, 30 seconds of audio. What are you going to do? And I'm intrigued. Um, Amit, you and I
I've
have
seen.
many chats which are non unrecorded, where I'm like firm believer of audio being everywhere and everything. But I'm actually, I feel what this has done is it's almost said if you're an audio creator, not just a video creator, you can be anywhere. In a similar way,
Hmm.
if you're a TikTok creator, you can now be anywhere, except for YouTube shorts, which is just a terrible product. Let's just be like, it's really bad. Like it's cannot get over how bad that product is. But
No, so I've seen audio reel use cases which are kind of interesting, right? There are some which are around the idea of like mimicry and movie dialogues and stuff
mm,
like that. Now, but all of these feel like if somebody had a channel of audio reels can I go through them? Like, can I get 15-second news story bites? Right.
Hmm.
So, but again, I feel like in a mixed feed from multi users, it would
Yeah.
not be as
Like,
workable.
would you
But if
swipe
it's
through it in audio? I think that'll just feel like noise.
so I could swipe through it in audio if what I'm getting is a channel. If I'm getting 15-second news headlines, one after the other, 100 headlines, that I
Yeah.
can swipe through in audio. Right.
Hmm.
But if it's a part of a mixed feed where I get a headline, then after that, the next thing I see is some person singing, and then the next thing you have is like, some person dropping an Amitabh Bachchan mimicry thing, and then the next thing you have is some person making like, some sort of a shitty ass comment, and then you get another news thing, then I don't feel like that would be compelling. Right. So it kind of depends on how it plays out. But again, Facebook has made
Yeah,
audio
this is a
announcements over the years. Until there's something in product, I don't know that is happening. This is a third audio. So I've been in the audio business for 6 years now. The third time I'm hearing a Facebook announcement. So nothing has happened till date. I'd love to see something
audio
actually play out.
audio reels is voicemail.
Audio reels is, yeah, it's
Do you guys
a
remember
15
voice tweets that
second.
app Twitter still has and nobody uses? But
Yes,
Yeah, it's that.
it's the same thing. It's exactly that. It's your WhatsApp recorded message with a time limit on it,
hmm.
but it not as pointed and not as directed.
That's why I like Substack audio. It's actually quite interesting. I use it. It's a lot of it's a
Yeah.
very interesting model to have if you want
Okay.
to write as well.
Well, yeah. So Substack is interesting. You saw Ben Thompson release something which was similar yesterday.
Hmm. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's a basically he moved his entire stack over to that, which is newsletter plus podcast and
Yeah.
premium podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how do you kind of, yeah?
I think
So
I'd shared something like that. Someone who's like a platform which basically
that's
takes your
the
podcast, makes a page, makes a transcript, makes a whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. You had sent me something like that as well. So there are a
Hmm.
bunch of innovations happening. There's some really interesting happening in the stuff happening in the podcasting space. Again, Facebook is saying that they're going to do some stuff. We'll see what happens. There's this company that Mark Cuban is supposedly launching in June or July, which is supposed to be really interesting. The original stream father, the person
Hmm.
who
Yeah.
invented streaming.
Yeah.
And he's basically, well, not invented streaming, but invented the idea of mass streaming, right?
Hmm.
But he's got something which is apparently a combination of Clubhouse, a combination of like an app where you record individual tracks, individual video. It's like a full creator suite for creating podcasts on multiple different levels with multiple different content types. So I've heard about this, but I haven't. All I've seen is like some rumor articles. I don't know exactly what's coming on. I'm very keen to see what that is.
I'm again excited about Snapchat, by the way. Snap's made some interesting moves in the recent past, and I keep going back to it, and it's that. I mean, it seems to be growing a lot. I mean, none of us are the audience.
Yeah, so
And
it's
they're
two
still
phones
making
ago for
hardware
me.
also, by the way. They
Yeah,
just
yeah.
launched a new
Yeah.
Those glasses are
spectacles.
fabulous.
Yeah. So they're
They're
still
two
doing
phones
things.
old for me. I haven't had it on my last phone. I don't have it on this phone yet. I should, but if you're saying it's that interesting, I'll give it a look.
No, it's great. Their AR
Yeah.
game is beyond anybody else's, but they've
Yeah.
just launched something called I think it's called Spotlight, if I'm right, which is
Yes.
literally again it's TikTok.
Hmm.
Everybody has a TikTok now, so it's like how everybody has Clubhouse now. Everybody has TikTok now. So that's that.
Everybody,
All audio as a feature.
audio as a
Slack
feature
has
and short
Clubhouse.
videos.
By the way, Slack's launched a Clubhouse version of it that you can do. You can have audio conversations
Yeah.
on
Oh,
Slack.
so you can do audio calls on Slack for years. It just never works.
They're just calling it their own version of it. So
Yeah,
everybody wants to be part of that
so
tech.
audio calls on Slack, if it would work, would be such a great feature. They just don't work. Like, I mean, like I was talking
Team
to somebody.
Microsoft Teams here, but okay.
Okay.
Oh.
I've been using it. I
Listen,
actually quite like it. It's a nice product.
yeah,
It's
it's not
evolved
bad
well.
actually. Yeah, it's not bad. So I was trying
Why
to do
does
stuff.
why do video calls don't not do multi-screen in that?
Oh, now they do. Now they do. Finally.
Why do video calls not do multi-screen? They do multi-screen. You do
Not
get
in
like these
Teams.
yeah, you do.
You
You get
can't
these
see
kinds
5
of
people at the
videos.
same time.
Yes, you can.
Have I let this
I tr-
conversation
I was
digress
on a
very
call
badly?
yesterday.
Yes.
I was on a call yesterday. Yes. No, but hey, we all have our things. So I'll tell you what the most frustrating thing, since we're talking about video call stuff, Google Meet is the most frustrating one.
I
Because
agree, 100%.
when you share a screen on Google Meet, you
Oh my
cannot see
God.
anybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to basically break out a second browser window and like keep the call there
Zoom
and
is
the
still the
share
best
here.
option, if you ask me.
Zoom is I think so too. But Okay, cool. All right, guys, this was fun.
This
This
was
actually
fun
Yeah,
really was.
indeed.
this is
This actually really
entertaining.
was fun.
This was a nice Saturday afternoon
Yeah.
where the three of us clearly had nothing else planned, but not bad.
Yes,
Not
yes,
bad.
yes. This was fun.
I will go back and get some sleep because the moment I step out of this light, I fall asleep.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to go in and take my supposed weekend afternoon nap
Okay.
as well.
yes.
I'll go and read a new book that I just bought. I
Oh, by
got
the way,
the
book recommendations is a book.
yes.
Seth Rogen has written a book. It is by far the most funny book I have read. I have halfway through it. It's called Yearbook. It is so funny yet has some depth that is
Okay.
beautiful. Like he talks about everything. Like
Nice.
So
from the time he
I
started stand up as a kid to like pornography and like first time he
he's
had had weed and everything is there.
he's hilarious, dude. I mean, like he's
Oh my
actually
god.
just straight up fucking like one of the funniest guys you can imagine, man. So I got this book called Meltdown,
Mm,
which I was recommended on Tim Harford podcast, where
mhm.
it talks about how systems which are tightly coupled together have a tendency to fail. So I'm going to read that now.
Okay.
But,
I'm going to Seth
Okay.
Rogen. You go to
Interesting.
your book.
Interesting.
yeah.
And
All
you
right.
go sleep.
I will go
Yes,
sleep.
you go sleep, Sheldon.
Yes. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys
This
for
was
having me. It's a
awesome.
Thank you,
fabulous
everybody.
Saturday afternoon piece. Hopefully for people listening, it's fun as well. But I think it will be.
Yes.
It should be.
Let's hope so.